Hey, deserving listeners, this is Chapter 11 in our deep dive on the psychology of neo-Nazis, and we promise we will eventually get into specifics regarding this psychology. We have been talking a lot about the history and the factors that lead up to this sort of thing, which has to do with psychology, because we're not just individual creatures, we're societal creatures, and so we have to talk about the societal factors that lead to an individual becoming a neo-Nazi. But in this deep dive, we are going to pick up where Berto left off. This is the Psychology in Seattle podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor.
My name is Humberto Castañeda, and I provide training and coaching mostly for carnival barkers. All right, so trigger warning, horrible warning. I'm going to go through a series of events that happened in our country starting in the 1800s where they were motivated by racism and white nationalism. 1921, this is a famous one, the Tulsa race riot.
Yeah. 14
hours in 1921, mass violence engulfed Tulsa, Oklahoma. White rioters.
Well, the precursor to this, and maybe you're getting this, is that black people had carved out a community for themselves and were upstanding citizens, family people. They were thriving, doing well. And they had created a little community of business and homes, and the white people were not going to have that in Oklahoma.
That's right. I mean, so the story was that there was a Negro uprising. That was the story. And so because there was a Negro uprising spreading, the riot started, they started killing, looting, shooting.
Yeah, I think it was planned.
Bombing.
I think they had planned it.
Oh, of course.
They said, on this day, we're going to kill all the black people.
Yeah.
And we'll just say that it was an uprising.
Yeah.
Because no one has cell phone cameras.
They even used planes to bomb the area.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because in the Watchmen TV show, they have a plane, I believe. And I remembered that as we were talking about it. I'm like, was that an addition? But yeah, planes that had machine guns on them or bombs that they were dropping or something, right? Like the planes were part of the assault on the black people in this town.
Yeah. So what you were alluding to
is just says it's organized, it's militaristic,
and it's supported by the government structure. Because, okay, so what you're saying is they have this community. The community is doing pretty well. They're thriving. They're coming along. It is a complete threat to the white establishment of power there and a lot of the white people there, right? So they organize a thing, and they're basically planning, like, if we do this, we'll trigger this, and then that'll give us an excuse, and we'll be basically just like, get them out of here, quote unquote. But final solution style, right? Like why don't we just kill them?
Well, Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah.
A similar thing, right?
After all this, they passed fire codes, which made their rebuilding impossible. And 1,700 Klansmen marched through Tulsa the following year and won election in most of the local offices.
Yeah.
So this isn't like, well, yeah, a few people. No, this was institutional. Well after the Civil War. Horrible. Like planes dropping bombs in this country. I can't be more angry about this. Growing up in Bogota, I always idolized the U.S. because all I saw was like the little 80s window. And I saw, oh man, they look so organized and so nice and comfy there. And when I would visit my mom, it was certainly better than Bogota in the 80s. And things seemed like so wealthy and prosperous and the future. And everyone seemed nice and followed the law. And man, what a paradise. That was my impression. And so it really, as I slowly, and it was a slow process, slowly started learning about the past, it really like tarnished that image in a sad way. And reading a lot of these things, I go, I get it, like history is horrible in general, but this is recent. This is the 60s, and it's not protest. They kind of knocked someone above the head with a baton. They bombed and killed children.
Yeah. And it's currently happening with the neo-Nazi attacks, the white nationalists, the white supremacist attacks on churches and synagogues and other places, killing all sorts of people. The new playbook is a lone gunman who walks in and guns down everybody. That's the plan. They understand maybe that if you show up with a whole gang of people, you're very noticeable. But if you're just one guy with an AR-15 and countless ammunition, then you can do a lot of damage, you know?
Yeah.
And you're only one less person on the streets, you know?
The ratio for them is...
You get to retain all of your people. So, yeah, it's still happening.
Overland Park Jewish Community Center shooting in 2014. Again, I'm skipping over like horrible situations over and over. These are just like some highlights. But in 2014, we talked about...
Well, it sounds like you're highlighting the major mass killing events.
Yeah.
And
right.
That's what you're focusing on, which is effective. And we understand that behind the scenes, the system and the politicians and the propaganda and the laws that are passed and the suppression of the vote and all of that stuff, Hollywood is all conspiring to put down people of color.
And again, this is why I have such little sympathy for the commentary of like, yeah, but I mean, white people are having it pretty hard right now. You know, like the other day I lost a job to someone and my aunt couldn't get health care. And like, first of all the problems you're describing are your own doing for the people you voted for. But aside from that, they're bombing, shooting, massacring, dragging from a truck, lynching. Shut the F up, man.
Yeah.
Like just perspective.
Yeah.
So Overland Park Jewish Community Center 2014. And then the thing is that the dude who received a death sentence for his crimes, rightfully so, he yelled Sieg Heil at conviction and gave the Nazi salute. So this isn't like, went a little mad and did a thing. No, it's the ideology. This was, as we've talked about, it's a soldier in a war. 2019, El Paso, Texas, 21-year-old white man kills 23 people in an allegedly attack targeting Latinos at a Walmart. And it was inspired by Christchurch, which we talked about. 2020, Minneapolis, 26-year-old supporter of anti-government group Bugaloo Boys. So I mentioned the Bugaloo Boys before, and I mentioned that there was a connection. So do you know what the name Bugaloo Boys, you've heard of the Bugaloo Boys maybe in connection to some of these things? Okay,
Nope.
So they're one of these organizations, like the Proud Boys and things like that. They call themselves the Bugaloo Boys. Do you have any idea what they might be referring to with that name?
Bugala?
Bugala?
Bugala.
What's Bugala?
How's it spelled?
Oh, Bugaloo. Bugaloo.
Bugaloo.
Bugaloo.
Boogaloo Boys?
Bugaloo Boys.
Bugaloo Boys. And these are white nationalists?
Yeah.
Boogaloo. Boogaloo?
Bugaloo.
Beluga whales? They're white.
Do you remember a movie from the 80s? Electric Boogaloo?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. What is it? Breaking 2, Electric Boogaloo?
Yeah.
So the joke on 4chan was that we need a new civil war. We can call it Civil War II, Electric Boogaloo. So they named themselves after that idea, right? So Bugaloo was like Civil War II, Electric Boogaloo. And then they started playing with the name because they want to always stay ahead of people understanding what they're referring to. Kind of. So Bugaloo, they started referring to as like Big Luau, because it's like Bugaloo, Big Luau. Big Luau.
Is this where the tiki torches come from?
Well, that's my theory. Someone actually posted a thing on one of the comments on YouTube that they think that wasn't connected. I think it is because, first of all, they wear Hawaiian shirts, and that's become one of the things. They'll wear these Hawaiian shirts. Why are they wearing Hawaiian shirts? It's for the Big Luau. What Big Luau? Oh, it's Civil War II, Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah. It's like the Let's Go Brandon thing.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought the tiki torches were intentionally a reference to that. Someone said that it was just more of a coincidence. I don't know. I don't think they actually have many coincidences in these things. They seem pretty intentional, but whatever. In either case, all of this stuff originates initially from memes on 4chan and 8chan. And oftentimes they're started literally as just a joke, but then they kind of get like, the joke gets carried out further and further. And then they're like, well, let's just call ourselves this. And then and that's 2020 Oakland and California. I'm so 32-year-old active duty Air Force Staff Sergeant, self-identified member of the Bugaloo Boys movement, allegedly kills a federal protective security officer and wounds another. It's a movement, man, and they have this ideology, and then they carry out these acts. There's more, but honestly, I'm tired. This is just frustrating. And what's the good news in all this? The good news is that when I started the trail, it was 20,000 this, thousands dead, right? Like now it's like, okay, an individual lone gunman killed, and every one of them is a horrible tragedy. So if there is a silver lining, is that they appear to not be maybe as numerous and as massively supported by all the institutions and as deadly in all their offenses, but it's active and it's alive and well, and they really believe this stuff, and they're really gunning for a race war.
Yeah, literally. Wow. Yeah, it's interesting to see that through line that you depicted, and it is depressing. Well, let's take a break, and when we get back, the rest of this episode will just be for patrons of the podcast, and become a patron if you want to hear the rest. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because
you deserve it.